Hi, welcome to another edition of Business Bites here from Bauer Media in Northern Ireland. My name is David Tighe, the Managing Director of Bauer Media Audio in Northern Ireland. And this week, I'm really pleased to welcome our guest, Dr. Ian Humphreys, who's the Chief Executive of Keep Northern Ireland Beautiful. Ian, welcome to Business Bites.
Great, thanks for having me, David. Lovely to be here.
Well, it's great to have you back. You're in that club of being someone who's appeared on Business Bites now for the second time, and there's a really good reason why you're on with us, because recently you've attended the COP26 summit. So Keep Northern Ireland Beautiful, the COP26 summit. Why are you there, and what's your reasoning for being there?
Yeah, I suppose our main reason for being there has been around the demands of young people. As we know, we've seen on the streets of Belfast the strikes and young people actually really getting up in arms, I suppose, about the lack of action that's taking place on climate change in Northern Ireland. The fact that we don't even have legislation in place yet, really puts us at the back of the queue on this. So we've come here to, I suppose, make a plea to our political leaders and join forces with other countries that are demanding this, that we actually get the proper education into our curriculum to deliver for young people, that when they're heading out into the workforce, into whatever job they choose, whatever sector they choose, that they are well informed when they're starting to take the decisions that matter.
And what's your view on how the summit has been progressing? Because there's differing views. Many people say that there hasn't been any progress and nothing's changed, and others are saying that perhaps there is finally some movement. It's a very difficult one to call if you're not there. What's your view? You've been on the ground.
Well, yeah, and both those views are expressed by different groups of people. I suppose, go back to what a lot of people look at this and go, well, we've been knowing about this problem for decades, and the action really hasn't flowed from it. People are regurgitating some of their promises from the past. So you could argue that actually it's more good words, but no good action. Having said that, I think when you judge the level of interest now from the general public, the level of, it's unmissable in a TV program, in the news, in the adverts. It's totally unmissable. There is, I think, this growing move that is going to become unstoppable, and very quickly unstoppable. So I do believe that action is going to flow from this, even if the commitments are still a bit woolly and a bit watered down. When you think that nothing can be agreed unless every one of nearly 200 parties to this conference agree it, there's always some vested interests that are going to be, struggling with that. If you're a nation that's built on the coal industry, then how do you, talk to the coal industry about saying, well, we need to shut you down, which is the reality. But how do you actually transition that? That's not an easy ask.
A lot of this, from the various reports you would read, it seems that this is being driven by a youth movement, and it seems that young people seem to be fairly and squarely behind all the aims of the conference. Is that how you read it? Do you see there's a gap in understanding between perhaps older people like myself and the younger generation?
I think we're all at a fairly low level of understanding, to be honest, David. It's not in the curriculum for a start. Okay, so at COP 2015, was it, in Paris? Am I getting that right? That was Article 12, said we'd have climate education across society. Didn't happen. So here we are talking about it again. So people who've been through school, who are in jobs, we've grown up without that education. Even now we've noticed a problem. People are growing up without that education. So I don't think it's just young people. And I also don't think it's just young people that are caring about this. The reality for, if you like, older people who are in the jobs, in the positions that maybe can make a difference, they're trapped in structures that probably need radically reform, because they allow change to happen so slowly and have so many competing demands and checks and balances in terms of how things can change. So you just look at the Assembly. We know we've got to have climate legislation, and look at the not the mess, but the way that we're going about it is the most convoluted and difficult way of achieving it that you could imagine.
What's Keep Northern Ireland Beautiful? What is your role specifically at the conference? What have you contributed? What are the subjects that are really, really important for your organisation that you've been trying to get across and getting Northern Ireland on the map there?
Yes, well, our strategic plan has climate action, biodiversity recovery, and waste and pollution solutions as its three main focus points now. And we're here obviously revolving around the climate strand of that. But for us, our interests are manifold, but we have a very specific set of asks that we put to Nicola Mallon yesterday in terms of what young people are demanding in terms of accessibility and affordability, and changing that dynamic between the cost of using the car, for example, to come into town or into the city versus using public transport. And until that balance shifts, that it's cheaper to use the public transport, then we're really going to see people still rely on the car. So there needs to be a bit of carrot and a bit of stick. Can we reduce the cost of public transport and increase the cost of using the car? So young people talked about accessibility. They talked about TransLink, making sure all their rail networks, etc., all the land they own is used to maximize biodiversity recovery. And they also talked about having a voice in designing whatever comes next for them in terms of infrastructure. And I think Nicola Mallon certainly is very receptive to those ideas. And now we're at the end of COP, we're looking to see, is that something that can now play out in reality, and young people have more of a direct input, given that they can't vote till they're 18.
It would be remiss of me not to talk to you about carrier bags. Perhaps not the most exciting subject to some, but in terms of the fact that this charge now is going up to 25p, it suddenly becomes a very interesting subject. So how does that sit with your organisation, and do you think it's going to make any difference that we are now going to be charged a lot more for that carrier bag in our shops?
Yeah, it is an interesting subject for us. We've always argued that the cost should be a lot higher than it ever was, and I'm really delighted to see this move now to incentivize using reusable. And the fact that it applies to all materials is really interesting as well. So it's not just people going to shift to paper bags, it is getting us away from single use. And of course, this is one piece of legislation that is going to deter people from using single-use things. And of course, there's more coming down the tracks in terms of tackling plastics. A number of them will be banned. A number will be levied if they don't have recycled content. And with the extended producer responsibility legislation coming, the producers of that packaging and material will also have to start paying for its recovery, whether it's litter on the ground or in a bin. So I think there's a lot of stuff happening to put downward pressure on the use of single-use products, which we're going to be delighted to see come into play.
And if business owners are watching this particular episode of Business Bites, and obviously, the conference that you've witnessed, what should they be looking at now? What do you think are those messages that are being clearly delivered at COP for business? What should people be planning for next year? What's the corporately, socially responsible things that businesses can make changes in now?
Well, I suppose a responsible business will be looking not just at the bottom line in terms of the pound signs, they'll be looking at their impact on society, their impact on the environment. And you could argue that the accounting rigor that we have to report on annually could be applied to those other two areas as well. And that, I think, would give us a very, very good basis on which to judge companies that are performing well and have started to take this issue seriously. So that would be, I suppose, one of the big asks. I think the difficulty for investment, for example, in Northern Ireland is that without the legislation in place, it's hard to know where the ground's going to lie. And of course, businesses don't like uncertainty, and we need that certainty put in place. Then businesses can know the way forward. And of course, the protocol is another level of uncertainty at the moment, which also needs to be resolved, I think, before companies can sit very comfortably on this.
Well, Ian, it's been great to get your insight from the conference, and it's great to see you representing Northern Ireland there on the on what is a worldwide event. And I'd like to thank you for your time this week, and thanks for your insights. Much appreciated.
Thanks very much, David. Thank you. Cheerio.